Today, we're diving into a story that starts in the vast, icy landscapes of the Arctic, but you'll see it ends up right on our own doorstep. It's a story about one of the most incredible animals on the planet and what its struggle is trying to tell all of us. So let's get right to it. In Western Hudson Bay, the number of polar bears has dropped from around 1,200 in the 1980s to just over 600 today. Wow, that's a nearly 50% drop. This isn't just some number on a chart. It's a massive distress signal coming from the top of the world. So that leads to two really big questions, right? How on earth did this happen? And maybe more importantly, what does the story of a polar bear have to do with our daily lives? To figure that out, we need to zoom out for a minute and look at the huge changes happening to their home and to our entire planet. Okay, so to really get the bear's story, we have to start with the global context. What exactly is this climate change we're always hearing about? And, how do we know it's really happening? In the simplest terms, climate change just means the weather we've all come to expect is, well, changing. But the key word here is rapid. Sure, the Earth's climate has always changed over millions of years, but the shifts we're seeing now, they're happening in the span of decades. It's happening way too fast for nature to adapt. And here's the proof in the pudding. A 1.1 degrees Celsius, that's about 2 degrees Fahrenheit, jump in the planet's average temperature. Now, I know what you're thinking. 1.1 degrees, that doesn't sound like a lot. But imagine if your own body temperature went up by 2 degrees. You'd have a fever, you'd feel awful. Well, for a planet, it's basically the same thing. A persistent, high-grade fever with some very serious side effects. So what's causing this planetary fever? Well, the scientific evidence has really zeroed in on the main cause. And spoiler alert, it leads right back to us. So, it all comes down to this basic process. The greenhouse effect is actually natural and totally necessary. Without it, Earth would be a frozen wasteland. Think of it like a blanket around the planet. The problem is, human activities have been adding more and more layers to that blanket, and now it's trapping way too much heat. And this shows you what's thickening that blanket. The biggest one, by far, is carbon dioxide, or CO2. That mostly comes from burning fossil fuels like coal, oil, and gas. But you've also got others, like methane and nitrous oxide, which are super potent heat trappers, and they come mostly from agriculture. And look at these numbers. Seriously, we're not talking about small little changes here. Carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is up by more than 40% since we started the Industrial Revolution. Methane, which is a really powerful heat trapper in the short term, has more than doubled. To put that into perspective, the air around us right now has more of these gases than at any other time in the last 800,000 years. Okay, but couldn't something else be causing this? Like the sun getting hotter? Or volcanoes? It's a fair question. But scientists have looked at all of it, the sun's energy, eruptions, natural cycles, and the data is just crystal clear. The warming we're seeing just can't be explained without factoring in all those greenhouse gases we've been pumping into the air. So here's the crucial point. Among climate scientists, this really isn't a debate anymore. This quote comes from the IPCC, which is basically the world's top authority on climate science, and the word they use is unequivocal. That means there's no doubt. The evidence is just overwhelming. Okay, now let's zoom back in. We've seen the big global picture. Now let's go back to the shores of Hudson Bay and see how this planetary fever is actually affecting the polar bears. This is where all that data becomes a real story of survival. Remember that shocking 50% number we started with? The reason for that whole decline can be boiled down to two simple words: sea ice. For a polar bear, sea ice isn't just frozen water. It's their hunting ground. It's their dating scene. It's their entire world. For a polar bear, sea ice is basically a dinner plate. It's the platform they use to hunt for seals, which is their main food. But as the planet warms up, that ice is breaking up earlier in the spring and it's taking longer to freeze in the fall. Their hunting season is literally getting shorter and shorter every single year. And you can see how that shrinking ice season leads directly to a life-or-death struggle. Every extra day these bears are stuck on land is another day they're not eating. They're literally starving. They get weaker, it's harder for moms to have healthy cubs, and tragically, a lot of the cubs that are born just don't survive their first year. And this is the stark reality of it all. This is a direct warning from the scientists who spend their lives on the ice, studying these amazing animals. The trend is clear, and frankly, it's terrifying. But here's the thing, this isn't just a sad story about some animals in a faraway place. The polar bear's fight for survival is a direct message, and it's for every single one of us. I love this quote because it just hits the nail on the head. You see, the Arctic is warming up way faster than the rest of the planet. So what happens up there first is kind of a sneak preview of what's coming for everyone else. The polar bear is just the first to feel the effects of a problem that affects the whole system. The same forces that are melting the sea ice for the bears are also fueling more intense wildfires, floods, and killer heat waves all over the world. The polar bear story is just one chapter in a much bigger story about the disruption of the stable climate that has let all of us thrive for so long. And so that's what we're left with. The fate of the polar bear is like a mirror, reflecting the choices that we're making right now. Their shrinking world is a direct warning about the future of our own. The science is clear. The warning has been sent. The only real question left is, are we listening?